Here we have one of the most requested reviews on the channel. This is the Musician Pegasus 2. This is an R2R desktop DAC. It is priced at $1,099. It is sold and fulfilled by Audiophile. And this unit has the highest data rate available in the whole world. It actually has a higher data rate than what is available in music today. So think about it like future-proofing your setup. We are looking at 1,536 kilohertz and DSD up to 1024. I don't even have DSD 512 to be honest, because I typically just listen to Redbook CDs. So let's see what difference the Pegasus 2 will make with actual Redbook files, because that's where most of the music is most likely to be. Starting with the construction of the Pegasus 2, this is one of the most solid units in the whole world. It is made of metal, the entire chassis is made of metal, very resistant to scratches and also very sculpted. If you see, every single part has those nice beautiful sculptures. It sits on 3 legs, so at the bottom we have 2 legs at the front and 1 at the bottom. There is a toroidal transformer inside, and although this is a DAC, it weighs about 5 kilograms in total, very heavy. The front of the Pegasus 2 has 3 buttons, an on-off switch which you just have to press, it clicks nicely. We also have an input switch which cycles through the inputs, and an NOS and OS switch. That one we will talk about a lot in the sound part of the review. At the back we have the outputs and the inputs. The digital inputs include an I2S input, one of the most complex inputs out there because it uses an HDMI cable, but it supports the same data rates as the USB input. We also have a coaxial input, quite nice, an optical input, an EAS input and a USB input. To be fair, I have used the USB input the most because it is the most convenient one, especially when using it with my computer. It makes the most sense to use the USB input. We have an AC input and we have the outputs, which are either an RCA single-ended output or an XLR balanced output. For the best sound, the company recommends having either only the RCA or only the XLR output engaged at once, but I have found out that even having both of them plugged in won't damage the sound. The theory behind this is that especially with RCA amplifiers, you could have some channel crossfeed or some noise coming from the amplifier and feeding into the DAC. But since this is a $1,099 DAC, you are unlikely to have such a poorly designed amplifier that this would be an issue. This is most of the operation. I have noticed no problems with it, no USB DAC delay, so music will happen in real time. You can play games, you can watch live concerts, you can do everything in real time. It grows quite warm during usage, but it is not hot, it is never hot, and it is okay to place an amplifier above it. The heat from it will be minimal and it shouldn't affect the operation of the amplifier. Sitting on 3 legs sounds like a bad idea at first, but in practice it's pretty handy. It is quite stable on my desk. Also, because it has a high weight of 5 kilograms, it sits quite stably. The feet have little rubber parts at the bottom, so it is isolated from any kind of microphonic noise or otherwise, but a DAC doesn't inherit microphonic noise. I've seen some photos with people holding it on separator devices, and that's completely unnecessary. While it is needed for an amplifier with tubes, for example, I have the Felix Euphoria in the back. With Felix Euphoria Evo, the tubes do inherit microphonic noise. That is not a design problem on the Felix, it is an inherent thing about the tubes. A DAC, especially an R2R DAC, will not inherit noise from anything. Pegasus 2 has 2 sonic modes, OS and NOS. To understand what they do, we first have to understand what R2R DACs are. And R2R is a technology that uses a multiple ladder of resistors to create a DAC. It is different from the Delta Sigma integrated technology. Typically with R2R you can overcome some limitations of the Delta Sigma implementations, and also because Delta Sigma is typically created by one of 3 or 4 companies, if you want to design something, it will be an R2R DAC. So basically most chips that are Delta Sigma in today's world are either created by ASS, AK, Asahi Kasei, Texas Instruments, but there are very few, Burr Brown, and that's about it for modern ones. There were a few companies back in the day, but those are the most common ones. While R2R can be created by many companies, it is a design that can be expanded a lot upon. R2R DACs tend to have OS or NOS modes because they need an OS or oversampling filter to sound sharper and more powerful, as in NOS mode they will sound quite soft and the sound will be gentle. This is because without an oversampling filter, you just get the raw output out of the DAC. Delta Sigma typically always uses an oversampling filter. You just select which filter. With R2R, you can get the sound unfiltered, and that's quite nice. It's something that only R2R can do. The sound of the Musician Pegasus 2 has no background noise. Nothing. It is one of the most silent DACs in the whole world. I can connect it straight to the KHS 300 Plus and I will hear nothing. Absolutely no buzzing, no background noise, nothing. And that's new because most DACs have a bit of background noise. The issue there is that it doesn't have any kind of volume control. So I will need something that will be a preamplifier or volume control in the middle, right? And then we have Felix Euphoria Evo. Because Felix Euphoria Evo has a good control, it has a very pleasing coloration to the sound and also no background noise either. I can use it safely as a preamplifier in my full system, where I'm using KHS 300 Plus as the amplifier, I'm using the Musician Pegasus 2 as the DAC, and Pylon Diamond 30 Mark II as the speakers. It is a really nice system. But the point is, this DAC can be integrated in any system without adding any kind of noise. The sound of the DAC will have two modes, clearly, either OS or NOS. I listen mostly in OS or oversampled mode. This is because in oversampled mode it is one of the most colorful, dynamic and punchiest DACs in the whole world. It just sounds uplifting. The sound is very detailed, and in fact the detail is one of the strongest that I've heard in my entire life, even as a reviewer. We have over 750 products reviewed to date. Almost 150 are DACs or have the DAC function. And almost none of them can't beat the Pegasus 2, which is surprising because this comes from a company that I have not heard before. So Musician to me is new. This is the first product I'm reviewing from them. Also, it is a boutique company. It is not quite as popular as other companies, but the clarity of the sound is insane. It's just so clean, crisp and clear. It's just so open. The sound expands in every dimension, both in width, in depth, in height. You get such a good layering and separation between instruments. You can hear stuff that you did not know existed. Since it has a black background and no background noise, you'll hear everything in the background well defined. There is no scattering, there is no loss of information, and the sound is just very punchy and uplifting. This is all true for the OS or oversampled mode. If you engage NOS or non-oversampled, you'll get a much softer, more musical sound, which is slower. Everything is gentle, everything is reproduced in a slow but pleasing and musical fashion. It's just relaxed and laid back. So there are two very distinct modes inside of the Pegasus 2. I prefer the OS mode because it fits better with my music, which is basically electronic, EDM, pop, rock, metal. I listen to a lot of commercial stuff, but for something that is supposed to sound slower and gentler, or when you are tired, you can simply click on the button and engage the NOS. And that's the fun part. It is one button click away. You don't have to do anything else. You don't even have to install drivers, and I found that pleasing because they do mention on their website that you have to install drivers, right? So I thought to myself, I will plug it in, and it works. No drivers needed. On Windows 11, it works driverless, and so it does on macOS, Linux. It should work with most smartphones, including Android and iOS, but I have not tested that very much because it is a full-size DAC. I don't really need a smartphone to control it. I was able to watch and play real-time content, including game with it, and the gaming experience is quite excellent because it produces such a wide and well-defined soundstage. You hear absolutely everything, you hear it richly, but I can see why it would be a bit of an overkill for a gaming setup. You know, most people when they game, they don't get such a pricey DAC for their setup. But then again, I like playing to the maximum and it creates a very pleasing feeling. Overall, Pegasus 2 is the kind of desktop stereo DAC that I would recommend. It's what I would call true high fidelity. It reveals everything, it presents that music to you, but doesn't force anything. It sounds rich, it sounds refined, there is no edginess on square waves, but they are very clearly defined. This whole clear definition stuff is what it does best. The high resolution format support is a bit of an overkill. I will likely never have that kind of data rate in my songs. I don't even have many songs above Redbook, which is 44.1 kHz. I wouldn't stress about it. Having that support is great. Having the sound it has is the best part of it. Don't think about it as a sales strategy because the DAC can actually decode that kind of signal. That's impressive by itself, but the impressive part is how it sounds like. And I think it sounds like the most detailed DAC you'll ever hear, but it doesn't sound like the brightest or like the most aggressive one. It will sound like the most musical and sonically cohesive one out there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are having fun at Audiophile Heaven. Don't forget you can subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with my latest videos. Liking the video would also help a lot, and I hope that we'll see each other really soon. Bye!